I'd like to nominate John Williams.
Second. Hold back the enthusiasm.
Who calls for the vote?
Any other
Oh, other
nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Pledge allegiance, please.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4 then is public appearances, public's opportunity to speak on any subject not on the specific agenda item.
I don't have any, John.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Item 5 then is discuss and consider the minutes from our regular meeting on August 28th.
I
As well
move
as
to
our
approve.
special meeting on August 20th. Which one you want to do? Let's do, I said 28th first, let's do the 20th first. Sorry.
I move to approve.
A second?
There's a motion, a second. Any corrections or further discussion? I've heard none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstained? Motion carries. Next meeting minutes from August 28th. It's the special meeting. Is there a motion there? Any corrections?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion, a second. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstained?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 6, unfinished business. Item 6A is to discuss and consider an update to the financial management plan for 2019 through 2023.
Greg Johnson and Jonathan Chance, yes, that's correctly, here to go over an updated plan from the one that was discussed last month. So, whenever you guys are ready.
Thanks, good evening. We're here tonight to present the update to the financial management plan that we first presented last month. The majority of the changes have really been made on the capital side of the plan. There were some projects that were removed and adjusted by staff, and so we've updated the capital model to reflect those changes. We are going to briefly go back through the other components of the plan in terms of the general fund, the capital projects fund, the parks fund, and the street fund, and just to kind of recap that, but none of that has changed. So the bulk of the changes will be on the debt side because that impacted the capital borrowing. So Jonathan's going to walk through just some of the information we presented last month, just to kind of recap for the benefit of everybody, and then we'll get into the new changes.
Okay, yeah, so we removed a lot of the redundant information that we've already covered, and just to start off, wanted to review the assumptions that we made for this financial management plan. So the first slide here is the revenue assumptions that we made. This hasn't changed from last year. We built in a few increases for some funds, and then others that are held constant year to year. And then again, on the expenditure side, you can see how some, commodities have 2% increase, fringes have a 5% increase, and others are, listed there, so you can get a sense of how the expenditures are inflated through the projection. Next slide, again, we showed this last time, but this is updated with latest numbers. And you can see your general fund overview for both revenues and expenditures on this slide. Last year's actuals, this year's budget, and then a projection through 2023. As you can see, based on the changes that we made, the projected tax increase in 2019 is 3.34%. And you can see it drops off there down to closer to 2.9%, which is also pretty close to the inflation number.
And this is really unchanged from the presentation we went through last month, because all the information Jonathan just summarized is exactly the same as what we presented to you last month. So the operating projections are essentially the same.
So then next, we have the street tree fund summary. Again, this shows your revenues and expenditures for the street tree fund. Shows what was budgeted this year, and you can see the fund is increasing by about 2% each year going forward. Moving on to the capital fund summary. So this slide is just a policy overview that shows why the capital fund exists, what its purpose is, and how it allows the village to cash fund projects as opposed to borrow for them. That it's managed and administered by village staff, and that we expect that the fund expenditures will begin to level off in 2022. The next slide has the actual summary.
So I think what we'll do is we're going to just pass down, this is the spreadsheet that you likely may have seen from staff. It's really the information that's provided. It just shows everything that's included in this capital fund and is part of it was being paid through your levy. So the capital projects fund levy that we'll summarize in the next slide funds all of these particular items. So we just wanted you to have that, just so you could refer to it like you've seen it before, but that's just kind of there's a front and back that just kind of lists the projects that were identified. So that's as Jonathan mentioned, kind of the program that's kind of administered by staff, and then we build that into the future levy projections for the capital projects fund.
Yeah, so as you can see, the bottom, the total line on that plan basically is your expenditure total on the bottom of this summary page. So, yeah, so for 2019 projection, $530,024 in this plan and on.
So this really hasn't changed from what was presented last month either. So the levy increase is projected to increase the levy amount in this particular fund, and that's based off of the equipment replacement schedule. So to build up cash, build up reserves in that particular fund, so those items can be paid on a cash basis through the property tax levy directly. So the levy targets that are established are to make sure that there's adequate fund balance within the fund to pay for the expenditures based on what's been identified by staff over the next 5 years.
All right, the next slide shows the park improvements fund, and it's an overview. This hasn't changed either since the last update. It's an overview of the projects currently in the 5-year capital plan for parks, and it breaks down at the bottom the funding sources. So the Park Development Fund is, for example, expected to fund $254,000 in projects over the next 5 years, and borrowing for $1.48 million worth of projects in the next 5 years. And you can see the different costs for each project. The next slide is the summary for the Park Development Fund and a projection for the next 5 years, showing the revenues coming in and for expenditures and how they tie to the different projects that were listed on the previous slide.
So this fund, as we mentioned last month, is really largely driven by development. So to the extent that you get more development and more fees being paid into the park development fund, that could increase the fund balance that's available, that could reduce the amount of borrowing that may be needed for park projects going forward. So this is, kind of a fluid analysis that gets looked at annually depending on the amount of money that's coming in. We've been very conservative in terms of what we're projecting for revenue within this fund, kind of holding it very flat at conservative levels. So to the extent that that revenue increases, then we would recommend that you pay for more projects with cash. If all these projects, if it was the choice of the board to move forward with all these as outlined, that would reduce your borrowing going forward. So that's kind of how this gets managed and implemented.
The next two slides show the projects that are listed under public works for the next 5 years. This first one is the last version, the August 20th version. And you can see all the projects circled in red were removed subsequent to that meeting. I suppose I could have animated this somehow, but it wouldn't translate on paper. And so at the bottom, again, you can see how the funding sources break out. And in the next slide, you'll see the updated version.
Is there any, Matt, or were there any comments you wanted to make on any of the projects that were removed? Or
There was, JJ evaluated, instead of something like the Crawford plat reconstruction on there, for example, in the cash financing portion in the Fund 410, what's incorporated in there is a repaving schedule. So if we keep up with the repaving and maintenance, then at least the Crawford plat reconstruction, for instance, could be moved. And I guess JJ can kind of speak to.
That's pretty much the same for all those. The slag and restripe could be handled with road maintenance dollars, assuming they stay roughly where they are now. It may be split into 2 years, but it could be handled with operating funds. Like Matt said, the capital funds for the repaving plan to handle these versus having large projects we borrow. We incorporate the street sections in smaller pieces, but tackle them with the road repaving and the paving.
Where is the funds for the bike path that we received the grant on?
You know what?
So yeah, the bike path, and talking about the bike path extension north.
No, the bike path connecting us to Madison.
That's incorporated with the Clark Street project. I guess the news that we got the funding, we may have to add that into this plan next year when we do the same exercise as to, depending on the remaining grant funds that we still don't know about, what the village obligation would be. We would have to work that into next year, I suppose, in the same conversation. I think at this time, we're still waiting to see what the village actual responsibility will be. We know what the state's gonna pick up, but then that'd have to be incorporated. And that was 2021, I think. So this, when you annually review this, we shift these around and we'll do it again. But it could be significantly reduced with the one more grant possibility. So kind of, I guess, same time next year.
JJ, the one that we just heard about, does that have an expiration date or anything of that sort? The grant?
Yeah, it's set for design in the coming couple of years and then construction in 2021.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would just suggest staff that we just add that to the Clark Street, just so it's not forgotten in the shuffle.
Yeah, I think we need a visual on that, I would agree. And as I understand it, with the grant we received, we have to come up with 25%, is that correct?
20%.
20%, okay.
But then there are certain things, design isn't part of it, other things. So we still don't know the ultimate amount yet until we hear from that final DNR.
Mhm.
But, yeah, there's a village portion.
Okay. So slide 11 shows the change from that original plan to this update. You can see that the total 5-year plan originally, the last time we were here, cost $4.45 million. It's now dropped to $2.845 million overall, and borrowing dropped by over almost $2 million. And then there was a project added to the plan, the West Oak Street reconstruction improvements. So I don't know if there's any.
You want to speak to that, JJ? The West Oak? Well, yeah, essentially that would be the biggest portion of the previous page with the Crawford plat. For those of you who don't, West Oak is really wide it's just a lot of asphalt. So basically, pull that out as kind of the main thoroughfare of that whole neighborhood and keep it as its own project. We've heard over the years there may be issues with speeding and pedestrian safety, so we just roughly calculated in not just asphalt, but also maybe some traffic calming. And then, so it did get up to the 300,000 level, and so it's more of a, one of these type of projects versus the annual capital funding.
So we've taken those changes to the capital project listing that we just summarized, and we updated at least the financing plan for those portions of those projects that would be financed from the issuance of debt. So we have 3 different financings that we modeled: the 2019 financing for 2019 projects, the 2020 financing to cover 2020 and 2021 projects, and then another financing in 2022. So kind of looking at kind of some alternate staggering once we get beyond 2019 in terms of financing. That's to minimize the number of times that you're going into the market. So you're borrowing for maybe a couple years worth of projects, so you're not doing an annual borrowing and having those costs of going into the bond market on an annual basis. So we've kind of staggered these financings to accomplish that objective. So it's less borrowing than what we had before, because we've, as Jonathan summarized, reduced the number of projects that were included in the plan. In terms of what that means in terms of your overall debt service levy going forward, this chart just kind of summarizes graphically in terms of how your levy is projected to change. So the blue reflects your existing debt service levy, which is very flat and stable for the past several years. As we've talked about in the last workshop and previously, you've been levying for some of the debt that's been associated with TID 6. That's shown in red. And then we show the components of the new debt service levy that would be added in for the subsequent borrowings in 2019, 2020, and 2022. So it just kind of shows graphically those components that are shown down below in terms of the levy components of your debt service fund. In terms of your general obligation debt capacity, again, as a recap, the Constitution limits the amount of general obligation debt principal outstanding to no more than 5% of the full equalized value of the village. So with your existing general obligation debt outstanding, the 3 financings that are built into this particular plan, by the end of 2018, you're at 55% of your general obligation debt limit, or about 17 million remaining. Based on existing debt being paid down, you're not getting any higher than where you're at presently. So you'd be at 46%, and then it starts to decline going forward, even with encompassing new debt. So from a legal standpoint, in terms of complying with your general obligation debt limit, this doesn't impact you any more than where you're at presently. So the bigger issue is the impact on the levy and the affordability. So legally, you have enough capacity to do it. It's more of an issue of the affordability on your taxpayers. In terms of the equalized value, we had shown this last month. This just hasn't changed, but this kind of shows the TID out and the TID in equalized value. TID in, again, is all equalized value within the village. That's the number that drives your general obligation debt limit that we just summarized. Your TID out number, that's taking your equalized value less all the increment value in your TIP districts. That's the number that we use to really calculate and project what your future tax levy is going to be for your general fund, capital fund, street fund, and debt service fund. So with that, we kind of get to kind of the roll up and kind of the projection in terms of all these different components that we have just summarized. To kind of recap where we were last month, and again, really what has changed or what was different last month was there was a larger amount of capital projects and more borrowing that was identified in the plan. So we can see that your total levy from 2019 to 2023, you can kind of see how that was kind of projected to change, a little larger increase in 2019 once that increase in the capital project levy was kind of factored in. and then it was kind of ranging in around that 5 to 6% levy increase annually for your total levy for all of the funds that you're presently levying. That's general, street, capital, and debt service. So that's where we were last month. If we look to where we are at now with really the reduced borrowing plan, really not much has changed in 2019 because there really wasn't a lot of adjustment in terms of the capital impact on that fiscal year, but you'll see then going forward that the levy impact is a little bit less than where we were at last month, really kind of averaging about a 5% increase from 2020 to 2022, and then kind of dropping off to about a 3% increase in 2023. And so it's, again, less borrowing, less impact on the debt service levy, and that's what's kind of drawn down these particular numbers. So we show the estimated tax rate, and then for the village taxes only on a $250,000 home, that's shown on the last line on this spreadsheet in terms of what that impact would be based on all the assumptions in this plan. As we mentioned last month, we've taken the CIP as it's been prepared, and as you saw, there were a lot of adjustments and reductions in the total projects being funded. And we've shown the impact of fully funding that CIP. So to the extent that you make some other changes in projects or projects that shifted or delayed, these numbers could adjust, but this is kind of the all-in scenario based on the revised capital plan that's been put forth from by staff, which again is a reduction from where you were at last month.
And Greg, just to summarize the tax impact, the highest impact would be the first year of the 5-year plan at about $88 for the average village home, and then it goes to $15, $28, $24, and then in the final year of the plan, $8 decrease. But that's just with it all in right now, how it stands. So any changes anyone wants to make could alter that.
On slide 18, we've just graphically shown all of those same components of your levy going forward, so it just kind of provides a visual in terms of where your levy dollars are going. The bulk of your levy goes to the general fund, and then really the next area shows kind of that ramp up of the capital projects fund in green, and then your existing debt, and then the new debt that's added in. So it just kind of shows, again, where those levy dollars are going in terms of the various components of your property tax levy. And then to graphically show the same information that was represented in that table, this just kind of depicts kind of historically where your tax rate has been, and then again the full funding of the capital plan as projected along with your operating budgets kind of shows that all-in scenario in terms of where the levy would be and where your estimated tax rate would be. And that's again all taken from that same summary table. It just shows that information graphically. So as Matt just mentioned, to the extent that projects are changed or there are further reductions made, that's going to obviously impact its numbers going forward. But it kind of shows where we stand presently compared to where we, less of an impact compared to where we were last month. Finally, just kind of one item that we always like to take a look at is Wisconsin municipalities have been under levy limits since 2005. You're allowed to increase your levy by the amount of net new construction, and then there are several allowable adjustments to your allowable levy at that point. The main one is debt service. All general obligation debt is exempted from levy limits, so you can levy what's necessary to cover your debt service payments. So really all we're doing here is just kind of a check to see if this plan was implemented, as presented. Could you fund it under the levy limit law? And the answer to that is yes. Just one item I just want to mention in terms of, kind of monitoring this going forward As we saw in the capital projects fund, which we certainly recommend you continue to cash finance as much as possible to reduce future borrowing, but that capital levy is not exempted from levy limits. That kind of competes with your operating levies as well. So we were showing that capital levy kind of ramp up in your budget to increase cash financing of options. That ramp up may put some pressure on the levy limits. We're kind of seeing here that your unused levy capacity really starts to kind of diminish in year 2022, 2023. There's obviously a lot that can happen between now and then to change those numbers positively or negatively. But as you start, if you start seeing some pressure on that levy limit, those are the factors. Your operational budget and your capital levy are really the one things that you aren't allowed to adjust beyond really kind of the net new construction. That's kind of where the levy limits kind of hamper your ability. The debt, I think it's kind of an unfortunate side effect of the levy limits, is to keep your levy down, but yet the only thing they exempt is borrowing, so it kind of increases more emphasis on borrowing. But that's just kind of the lay of the land in terms of how the levy limit laws have been in place since 2005. So that's kind of an update kind of on where we're at. Again, kind of to summarize, really the operational forecast is really the same. There haven't been any changes there. The changes were on the capital side, mainly the borrowing. The borrowing was reduced, so that decreased your future debt service levy, which is what drove down kind of future years, 2020 to 2023, the projected impact of the levy.
And Greg has his computer model here, so if there's anything the board member wants to see shifted, taken out, added, he can do that, and then we can see how that changes any, figures for this year or future year.
Well, based on our current knowledge with the grant that we have received, and I understand we may receive more between now and then, I think we should add the $105,000 at that, our commitment to that bike path in there.
It may be more than that, too.
Well, I'm just going off of what was it, 524 is what the grant that we got, and I did it by 20%.
They're still designed, it wasn't a part of that, so,
Okay.
I mean,
So what's a realistic number, JJ?
absolute worst case, I think 230 was what we kind of.
All right, well, that's definitely something that should be in there. That's a pretty big number. And I guess the other thing I see is a pretty big spike between 2019 and 2020, is that right? Or,
No, it's this year. It's going into 19.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's it, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, between 2018 and 2019. Whether we eliminate some of those items or whether we shift those to other years so it's not such a big spike.
A lot of that's driven by the increase in the capital levy.
Yeah.
Your capital levy last year was about $338,000. That's supposed to be about $475,000. So that's not the only component, but that's one of the larger ones.
And the main reason that the capital has increased was for road repaving and for a new fire truck coming up in 4 years. Kind of planning for that, so the funds are there when we get to that year.
What we had it last year for repaving was 110, and it's 110 for next
It wasn't
year
in there at all last year.
No, it wasn't in there.
What was that?
It wasn't, this
We
is
added it.
additional money that was added in.
So is it on the top of the 110 that's already in there?
It was zero last year.
Initial.
On last year's budget, we had gotten some money from the state DOT.
Yeah.
And we also had 110 in there, I thought, for road repairs. What happened to those funds then?
That's in addition to this, that's
Okay.
general road maintenance. This is for an actual like repaving of a road. That would be for like crack sealing, seal coating, pothole.
Okay, so that's in addition, so.
Right, this is
okay.
new, yep.
Okay. I see that we're replacing dump trucks that were acquired in '03 and '05. You know, obviously, one truck has lasted from '03. Can we make the '05 one last another year?
Honestly, those two, the 03 would be the one that may last. I mean,
Okay.
I'll-
Can we put, yeah, can we
It's
put
not ideal,
a, the dump trucks are used for plowing too, I assume,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, primarily plowing.
Mhm.
They're, we haul things.
So Jim, we could strike those out and.
Just one.
Unless we change the bottom line that we're
Uh-huh.
levying, that, all that will do is add that to the next year. We still have to pay for that equipment.
Right, and it would make the increase, right. Well, it would,
No, so-
if we
so
put
the
it
first-
off, if we put it off a year and then buy another truck next year,
Well, if we could remove that and we wouldn't be, so we wouldn't be drawing down on the capital reserve fund, but we're still levying 475. So you'd have to lower the 475 on the very bottom there.
Mhm.
But if we do that, then we're not gonna be able to fund the plan moving
where are you
forward.
seeing 475? I see 530. Am I looking at the wrong column?
530,000 is what we're spending.
Uh-huh,
55,000.
Here,
okay,
here.
all right.
And JJ, I thought that you had a backhoe in this year's budget that we
Yeah,
looked at.
payload.
What was that? Oh, payload,
Payload,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
We're.
Gee, we got it smoothed out. So,
So basically, Jim, the overall budget is 475,000.
Mhm,
But
I see.
there's gonna be 530,000.
to smooth it out, yeah.
And 55,000 will come out of previously tax dollars for this purpose.
Uh-huh,
And then,
stuff we banked,
Right.
money we banked.
yeah,
So we'd have to lower that overall and then smooth it out. So cutting it 125 would be spread out over 5 years.
we would next year have to jump it from 500,000 to maybe 600, and the next year that's at 575 to 675.
Well, we've got a truck replaced every year, so the worst truck would get replaced each year, is what I'm saying.
Jim, I think
Yeah.
Matt's getting at the fact that the rest of the plan going out the years accounts for the 475 coming in to that fund
Right.
and continue to fund it.
What
going
we're
forward.
really running into is if you look at the year 2022,
Uh-huh,
there's almost $1 million of equipment that need to have enough money saved up by then to pay for that.
Right.
So that year, the planned levy amount is 625,000,
Mhm.
but there's 935,000 of equipment, so we need to have that $310,000 to pull out of reserves for that
Right.
year. So we're just making sure that the funds are available.
okay. If I understand it correctly, we're looking at about a 6% increase next year, right? In just the levy, in just calculating the difference between the mill rate, the old and new mill rate, is about 6%, roughly.
Okay.
And so that, and I just did a quick calculation, that represents, if we brought that down, cut that in half, just dollars that we would need to cut to get it from 6% to 3% is about $116,000.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So that's what I'm looking to cut, to bring it in line with inflation, just a more reasonable increase than 6%.
And JJ, I mean, the reality is I know we have a replacement schedule, but are the trucks in that bad a shape that they need to be replaced?
No, they'll run. Ideally, we're not chasing maintenance issues, so, you know, you want to stay up on this, but, no, we'll keep them going if that's the direction we're given.
It's just, that's the biggest number on here. And, I agree with Jim that we need to keep closer to the rate of inflation or the rate of growth in the community while maintaining a
Good roads.
capital fund.
Yeah, yeah.
But, again, is it a necessity or is it something that we like to replace?
And where else can we cut, I guess is the question.
Do we have a fund set up for repair of the vehicles then? That it has enough to repair what might
We
happen
typically
to those
Spend
vehicles?
it or spend close to it, but, In my years here, yeah, it's been covering maintenance of the trucks.
And, you know, those are pretty old. What is the, you know, it's a small amount, but do they get very good gas mileage?
Well, no. I mean,
None of them.
but we don't have a big staff, so we're not putting a lot of hours on this equipment either. That's why there's a best practice in municipalities for when you replace this thing, but there's also a lot of factors that go into it. So if we don't put the hours on these things, there's, you know, bigger staff too. So, I mean, we'll make our best, you know, whatever, like I said, whatever direction we're given, we'll make our best assessment, which truck makes the most sense to replace, or keep them going however we can.
Were these on the budget last year to be replaced?
Yeah, the equipment, that's been in place for years, planned replacement.
But it's kept being pushed down the road?
Oh, no, they weren't, no.
Oh.
They were scheduled for this year.
Not these specific trucks.
Okay, thank you.
Because what I'm hearing is cutting one of those 124,000 dump trucks, lowering the capital levy from 475 down 124, down the same amount, and then seeing where that shakes out on the bottom line.
Yeah, it'll spread it out, I understand, and we'd have to make more cuts to get to 3%, because that's only going to cut a small portion. You're saying that if we cut it, it spreads it out over 5 years, right?
No, this would, if you made that cut, you're right down to your
Okay.
3% right there.
Okay.
What I was getting at is if you, we just have, if we change that, if we didn't change the actual levied amount, or if we do in this case, we just have to see how that affects future years to see if we can still fund that 2022 year that has the most equipment, so I mean, we
Yeah, if you
can,
kind of look at the chart back on
Yeah.
page 7, down below, it kind of shows the fund balance in the fund, and I think that's kind of what Matt's talking about, is that, you know, the levy targets identify not only to pay for particular projects in a particular year, but to start building up the fund for larger purchases in a future year. So in 2022, where there's, you know, a much, you know, higher amount of expenditures, about 935,000, you know, that fund balance by the end of the year drops down to about $106,000.
and right over 100, over 700,000 right now, so you can see how quickly it can be
Right. Quickly it can
reduced.
be-
We just want to be mindful of that.
I guess by doing what we're doing here, I don't want to see it jump up significantly more in sequential years because we're doing it this year. I think it's more of a question of necessities versus needs, and keeping it at a reasonable level.
Is the thought then that we could shift out all the remaining dump trucks perhaps out, you know, a year or so that we end up not having to boost up as much? We're still gonna have to do, I agree with you, Matt, we're gonna do something in order to accomplish the 22 effort.
You can see next year already, there's planned 776,000, so if we had to replace one of the dump trucks next year, you know, that's only increasing that. Were you thinking,
Well, one is
No,
scheduled to be
I'm saying we
replaced
shift
next
them
year.
all out, you know, a year, if you can,
Okay.
if you can work them, and again, this is something I looked to JJ for input on, I mean, he knows the equipment, if we can't do it, then we can't do it, so that's a moot point. I mean, the roads need to be plowed.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This
I guess the
board will
risk-
have to shovel, I guess, yeah.
That's the thing,
Yeah.
is when you go kind of against best practice,
Yeah,
generally speaking, you don't know until it's a February snowstorm, you got a catastrophic failure on one of your trucks. So
Mhm.
I'm not gonna guess which
Yep.
one, I don't know.
Yep.
But I do, you know,
Yep.
you have a great, like that 03 Pete runs beautifully.
Mhm.
But that may change tomorrow.
right. Understood.
so essentially just shifting all the dump trucks over
Yeah, keep replacing one every year, because it looks like you have one every year being replaced out to 2022 anyway, right? It's just that instead of 2 replaced this year, we'll just replace 1. So you continue to pick out your worst one and dump it.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
And each year, I'm just guessing that the estimate of a dump truck's gonna increase about $4,500, so we're delaying that purchase,
Yeah.
correct?
When we get rid of dump trucks, do we sell them or get some sort of trade-in?
Yeah, want to talk about that process? There's a public, kind of like a public sector
Township.
eBay type auction service that we do some of it on, and
Or you can basically check those and see where the number's at, and then when you spec the truck and bid it, you can have them give you a traded price too. So that's the other thing, that the longer you wait, the more somebody's gonna look at one that's 20 years old, and that number's gonna drop significantly, so.
Yep.
You lose less money every year as it gets older. Depreciation is less.
There you go.
Greg, do you want to put it in the model and want to cut 124,000 out of the levy portion of the capital fund?
And where are we going to add that 230,000 for the bike path? And I know it's not in the capital fund, but we need to get that into the whole formula of the budget then too.
That would, I think, just add it right onto that Clark Street project.
Yeah.
Reconstruct, they were gonna be together anyway, and put it right next to it.
Again, Matt, this is just a guide too. Doesn't preclude us from making other changes as we go into the budget cycle
Right.
for 2019, but this is our guidepost essentially. So I don't know how much more, penciling we want to do this evening as a group.
Yeah.
We might want to.
We've got the committee meeting scheduled, so.
Essentially, it'll give me a levy to work with. Individual departments are currently working on their budgets. They'll submit them to me. They'll end up being 2 million over over what you guys have. I'll cut it down to what you want.
Yeah.
The projects that I have in there, you guys might not all agree with me on, and that's kind of where we work through it some more. But the next big meeting would be a finance meeting on October 9th, and I think we have full attendance already for that. So
Can you tell me that again one more time, Matt? I'm sorry. On the capital fund,
down
120.
down 124,000.
24,
just in 2013.
Right. And down in both expenditures plan and the levy amount.
So Matt, that'll give you enough direction.
Yeah.
So reduce the levy $124,000 from what it was prior. So then down below, this kind of shows what the total levy and the tax rate is projected to be. So that's compared to page,
So $41 increase instead of 88.
yeah. So that's compared to what's on page 16 of page 17 of the PowerPoint. So it shaved off about 4 cents off the tax rate.
Any other adjustments that Trustee want to make or discuss? Otherwise, we can, this is discuss and consider. This is kind of the guideline for us. I don't know if you want to have a motion on that, to move this forward.
Yeah, I think a motion's good, yeah.
So are we gonna re-add that $124,000 in out years or slide everything over? How was,
Yeah, I
do that
was-
tonight or? just part of that?
I'll shift that, every dump truck, I'll be shifting a year over.
So the one that's scheduled for 2020,
Mhm.
the 2007 will actually go to 2021? Do you mean like that?
Yep.
So like the 2003 or 2005 one, that are both on this year, one will go to next year,
Mhm.
or to 2020, excuse me,
Yep.
like that? Okay. So there'll just be one dump truck per year?
Mhm. That's correct.
At least in this plan, maybe some year down the road, there might be, depending on maintenance and whatever, but.
It's just our guidelines.
John, I think if you want to move forward with it, just a motion to accept the financial management plan for 2019, 2023 as amended by the board.
That's what I was waiting for. Thank you.
I'll make that
Give
motion.
me that look.
Thanks. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second then to move forward with the updated financial management plan per the discussions that have been had for 2019 through 2023. Any further discussion? Okay, then, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstained? Motion carries.
One clarification, I was looking at that, couldn't tell what year I was looking at. So that change, you may have lowered the tax rate 19 cents.
Good.
I think I said 4 cents, sorry.
Oh, so you're, Greg, what are you doing?
Now we find out.
Helps when I put it on the screen in front of me.
Wait, that changes. My
That sounds a lot
motion.
better.
$19 a thousand.
Thank you, Jonathan.
No, that's,
20
cents a
Item
thousand.
6B, then discuss and consider the village facilities use and rental policy.
Where we left off last time, there's some direction to staff to reach out to Village of the Forest, who had a policy that, that was being looked at as one that the trustee Russell was suggesting that we potentially adopt here. It is a relatively new policy there. They didn't have many comments. They did say that since it was instituted, they haven't had many people renting because they charge fees and people don't want to pay to rent. Some of the other comments regarding security, they have a key fob system, which we don't have it. We have it at the municipal services building. However, we don't have it in the common areas like the meeting room that would be used. As far as Village Hall is concerned, we just have standard keys. The main concern with that would be is if it's something that's after hours and we do a key deposit, if someone loses it or they don't return it, then we, for security purposes, should be rekeying, so there could be some costs there. And
Whoever would lose it would pay for that though, as part of the rental, correct?
sure, potentially.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
but
it's not
that's
our
why you
fault
need
they
a
lost it.
deposit.
What was that?
That's why you need a
Need
big
a
enough
deposit.
deposit,
Yeah.
because you can't chase
Exactly.
after them
Yeah.
necessarily.
And just comments from staff as far as the, how frequent we use the meeting space and kind of on an unscheduled basis during the business hours portion of the day. Our preference would be if we're gonna rent, that it would be after hours or weekends. But that's entirely up to you guys. And I did have a memo in the packet there. There have been a couple other comments.
I guess my personal opinion is that it's public space, and I think it should be open to the public. Also, I learned at the Flynn Hall meeting that we had that, we We contribute a third of the cost of Flint Hall. The town does a third, and the Lions do a third. Any revenue from rentals there goes all to the town. We get no sharing in that. Our cost for that, in round numbers, is
1,600.
$2,200. Last year, 15 residents utilized the facility for rental. We subsidized that by $144 a person. So I'm not sure if the direction we're going, but I'm not sure if we start doing the Village Hall, if we want to continue to do Flynn Hall. It seems like it's nothing but costing us money, and our citizens aren't utilizing the facility.
Yeah, that's something that's been brought up a couple of times. Being a survivor of the basement of Flynn Hall, but that has come up in terms of, do we really use this or not? I know that Sean, we asked him at one point.
Just when you call on it.
Yeah, I know. That's usually what happens. But I remember asking him, well, do we use it for anything? I think it was used for maybe one class, if even that. So, I mean, I think
That's
that would
probably
be
before
something-
we had the extra space, yeah.
So that might be something you want to look at. And I know that's on the agenda tonight, and I was going to just ask, is that something we've looked at for a while?
So our benefit as a village is that, citizens can rent it for $132 versus a normal rate of $422, but very few are taking advantage of that. And there's no revenue sharing, of the rentals at all, so.
Right.
Should we just, we brought this up last time about the facilities that are available in the village. We should make those listed on our website so that they have a spot to go. Those facilities are probably much more suited for events than, a few meeting rooms in either the village hall or our maintenance building. So why don't we try that avenue first, to encourage, if they need space, to take advantage of that.
I did reach out to trustee Enda Forest regarding their policy, and one reason why is that their policy is relatively new is because they have new facilities in the past year or so or two that they've renovated and added on to their village hall, so they've had extra space. Prior to that, they didn't. So that's one reason why their new policy is in place, because they have the extra room now.
For after-hours meetings, the municipal services building for security purposes would be, more ideal than Village Hall.
But it's not as big though, correct? The room is- The
Yeah,
space is
it's much smaller.
Yeah.
So it depends on the
Yeah.
use.
I guess I would be leaning towards first stab at this would be, let's give those facilities that are already available, get those out so that it's communicated before even considering relatively smaller facilities that the village actually has. We're already subsidizing Flint Hall, so that's an advantage to our citizens. I don't know if we could even compete with would you say $140 some dollars?
Yeah, our supplement to each person that utilized it was $144.
What do they pay? What do they pay?
What was that?
What does the
Just the
village?
number of people that rented it by the
Oh, okay.
by the call.
But what does a village resident pay? What's that, 122?
122.
122.
Way.
I'm sorry, 132.
132, okay.
And also that facility is open to any community organization, just subject to scheduling of that, so. American Legion uses it, I think. and-
Troy, do you know, or does anyone on the board know who currently serves on Flint Halls? I mean, it's like 2 citizens, isn't it? Plus a,
The president,
and
village is invited to it, so.
okay.
Larry Keough is one of the citizen members. Are you a?
Ron, maybe?
What was
Or,
it?
Scott, and I can't remember his last name, he's my neighbor, is also on that. But, yeah. But Troy and I attended the meeting.
Yeah, were you on the Village or you were from the Lions?
I was from the Lions.
Okay.
He let me sign in for both, so, yeah.
You listen.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, it's something that I brought up in the past and just.
It's not a huge
asked the
expense,
board,
but,
can,
we're
consider,
talking
do you-
about this.
Do you feel like you're getting enough bang for your buck?
I'm just not sure enough people are utilizing it that the Village is getting a benefit from it. Especially we open up some of the other facilities, or another facility for rentals.
And just to remind everyone who's kind of driving this, I was asked to draft a policy after meeting with residents first. There was about 50. It was a Sunday afternoon, coordinated with Jack and Matt and staff to pick up the key, and Lisa gave me a once-over on the AV equipment. And then later, once again, deconflicted the schedule, where the superintendent and business service director from the school came and addressed probably 12 to 14 citizens interested in the upcoming referendum discussion. The local bank conference rooms weren't available. I guess I didn't look into Flint Hall, but AV equipment's a little bit limited there compared to what we have there. So I just, like I said, used the DeForest model, took out their birthdays and social events and limited to staff use and public use for not-for-profits, neighborhood associations, because we've had a couple of those incidents come before the planning commission and the village board. It is something that I'd ask staff to look into, because it is going to take some of their time to collect the security deposit. It's written in here that if the room's returned in the same manner it was issued, the check may be returned, or the deposit may be returned to the member, so it's at no cost. There's, language in here about if additional cleaning, it's, a per hour rate of $50 or whatever it may be, just to get some sort of policy. And I'm not for or against the policy, I'm just saying I've used the room twice through coordination, and I appreciate everyone's accommodation with that, but I thought it was an important enough topic where, like I said, I tried other conference rooms, and they just weren't available in the village, so I'm neither, I think what I've presented is good. The language you see in red is where I asked for staff input, just the size of the rooms. Do they want it 30 days out, or, things of that nature. I think having something in writing is always better, so people know it's available. And if we want to do it just on weekends, that could work too. But I'm neither for or against having a policy. If we do have a policy, like the one that I presented, with some additional staff input.
And the policy that I presented is based on what our non-spoken policy was, basically. I feel that if we did rent it out, it could have the potential to be disruptive to village business, everyday business. That's why I presented it. And I think, like with DeForest, they only have their policy now because they do have a larger facility with 2 meeting rooms, in addition to what they generally use for their village business. I have a feeling that's how it is, if I remember correctly from Matt's memos, that's how it is with other communities as well, where they have extra space, whereas we really don't at this time.
Yeah, most others that we talked to had either a community room of some sort, like a community center, or a library, or they were a little bit bigger than us, and their city hall has 4 or 5 meeting rooms in it, so.
Well, is there a motion that the board, someone on the board wants to make, either accept one of those 2 or John's suggestion?
John Williams.
John Williams. Well, or John Williams.
John, can you give us your suggestion again?
I was just suggesting that we provide for citizens the listing of available rooms that are in the community currently. Whether it's Flint Hall, I know that GDS has a community room, for instance. I think both banks have community rooms, for instance, with not only the location, but also a contact. And that way, you know, as John pointed out, he was scrambling, trying to find space. I don't know if we know of all those rooms yet, but, and I don't, and again, I just rattled off, I think 4 or so, but I suspect there are a few more that are out there, and then just having the contact that citizens would have to reach out to in order to reserve those rooms, before maybe approaching it from either perspective at this point. That at least gets us, gets citizens, you know, availability that may not interfere with, you know, village meeting or whatever else, and the space that we do have is very limited.
And I feel a good point of contact with that would be policy versus with the chamber, because most of the businesses that have meeting rooms in the community are probably members of the chamber and would be more than willing to provide a point of contact, and if there's a fee associated with it or some rules. So Paul would be a good point of contact for that.
So maybe we could see if, rather than having on the website a list of all of the places, maybe if they contact Village Hall, we can give them Paula's name if it's okay with her, or have her contact info. I don't know how exactly that works.
And I think if we know the contact and know the location, we can just list them on the website, and then we certainly can add that to the site. And then an individual will know, well, that will work for me, that won't work. Particularly if they put like capacity too on there. You know, this room will take 10 people, this room will take 30 people, this has AV, this doesn't have AV.
Times it's available.
Times available, yeah. A few simple things and a contact, and away we go. At least we've moved the ball down a little bit further down the field for this, and then if we want, I'd say we table both of these.
Yeah.
And, you know, at some point, maybe we'll have to pull them off the table and reconsider that. Again, if demand is such that, you know, people are saying, hey, I've tried all the availability and nothing's available over and over again, then maybe it's time to open up more space. And then we may have to look at, you know, when that would be, only weekends. Do we need to get different security? What do we need to do in order to make that happen?
So I'll make a motion that we table it, just as John has suggested, and create a listing that would go on the website of available space in our community.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and second.
And just see, from a procedure point of view, if it's not taken off the table next time, then it dies,
Yeah.
it goes away. But that doesn't mean you can't bring it back at some other point in time.
Okay.
So there's a motion and second currently to provide this information to citizens on our website of the available space in the community for meeting space. Is there any further discussion? Having heard none, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Motion carries. All right, moving on then to item 6D, and that is discuss and consider Alliance Street light buyback. Up C, sorry. Thank you for keeping me honest. I'm just trying to keep us moving down the
Yeah,
road.
that's right,
All
we're slowly but surely.
Discuss and consider a joint meeting for the town and the village as proposed on September 27th. Does this work with the town? We don't know.
It does work with the town. You know, originally we had August 29th from our last meeting with the town for the spring on the calendar, and
Nobody reached out to the
Jack
town.
communicated with Chris on August 18th, and our last meeting, I think, was August 20th, so it shifted to September 27th. I'm a little disappointed because I'm out of town all weekend and not available to meet, but if you folks are, that's I can certainly provide my list of topics.
Did Jack ever hear back from Kim as email at all from September 11th? That was in the packet.
You mean in terms of topics?
No, well, let's see. Am I going the right way? Yeah. that he asked about a start time and where we're gonna meet. And if the town can provide some background info for the topics they suggested.
I don't see any other update.
Not that I'm aware.
If we did meet that night, I would prefer to meet at 7 because I have a 5:30 meeting. So I'm hoping to make it, if we do it at 7.
If memory serves me, the last joint meeting, we were gonna alternate locations.
Yes.
So we hosted last time, they could host
And the town.
at the town.
Are there any topics that we want to discuss with them?
I'd say one is, I'm not quite sure what emergency government agreement is. That's something that Troy and I have talked about, but there are a series of agreements involving the fire department and this building that are spread through like 3 or 4 different agreements. And so you have to kind of, it's like a scavenger hunt, you know, you've got to try to find these in different places. And I think that trying to condense them into one agreement makes a lot of sense. And a good example of this is one of our next topics that's coming up, and that is the assumption that the easement, or that this road out here that goes down to the Houston property, that there was an easement, and there wasn't. And so, you know, those are things that we should know. And so I'd say that if we're going to talk about emergency government, there's several topics for emergency government.
Certainly one that I'd like to begin to talk about is economic development, joint effort there. And the study that the chamber had done, the branding study, so I think that would be a good topic to have, and I mentioned that to Jack, so.
I'm going to be traveling back from a conference and not able to attend.
Okay.
I won't be there either. I'll be out of the country. It's coming week.
So that, then if Jack,
We don't.
apparently he's going to make it, he knows the date. Since his email. Otherwise,
Do you need anything from staff? Or do you want any staff members there?
I don't think so. I don't think so, no. Not if we're, I mean, they were talking more general stuff.
Yeah, and one other topic, because I think 2020 is a big year for Parks and Rec, particularly Bocking Park, and talked individually with some of the board members in the town who were open, obviously, possibly making a contribution, because Bocking Park resides right between the 2 communities, and residents are currently not, we charge them non-resident rates for Parks and Recs. So talk to Sean, talk to Chris, and I get it. No one would, it's cost prohibitive for both. But I think they would be open to possibly contributing something for Bocking Park updates as well. So at least plant the seed, and we're not looking until 2020 for some of those larger expenditures out there, but there's a possibility.
Troy, I'd like to, since I'm talking with Chris anyway about the easement here, I'll just ask him what he means by the emergency government agreement, and then I'll give you the materials that I'm talking about, which always seem to be brand new for people, so
All right.
try to get everything pulled together.
Okay. So do we have a motion then to approve the 27th at 7 PM to try to make that happen?
Works for me.
Okay, I need a motion, Jim.
A motion to do that. What is it, to have the meeting on the 27th between the village board and the town board,
Yeah.
At
7 PM.
I would say at Town Hall, and per Melissa's
Yeah.
request, 7 o'clock, if that works
Yeah.
for everyone else. I'm not going to be here. so.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's
I'll
fine.
second that.
Okay, there's a motion second, again, to approve having a joint meeting with the town with a number of items in draft for agenda items on the 27th of September, beginning at 7 PM preferring to be at the town hall. Is there any further discussion? Having heard none, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstained? Motion carries. All right, now I'm going to move back to item 6B, discuss and consider Alliant street light buyback. And this is something that JJ brought to us a meeting or so ago. I don't know if you want to give a quick update on
Makes
on
complete
that.
sense.
Yep.
You read it?
Memo in
You
your
read
packet
this?
laid it all
That makes
out,
sense.
but it gets
Why
a bit
not?
convoluted. Basically, as we reported back in March or April, Alliant did an audit, found a bunch of streetlights that were unaccounted for. Mike and I met with a representative from them shortly after, and we realized when they completed their audit how many of our streetlights were under the no contribution designation, basically meaning when they were put in, developers or the village, nobody bought the pole and the fixture. If you do opt to buy the pole and the fixture, it's significantly cheaper monthly for the life of that pole. Alliant went back, talked with their legal and their financial folks, and basically I dug through old records, they dug through records, came up with 96 poles and fixtures that they would allow us to buy back. Essentially, the way it's offered is, there's 96 poles and fixtures, the rates are broken out in your packet. He actually went through and found the years they were put in and is charging us that rate, not the rate they would be now. $96,000. They want it to be a lump sum, 50% down immediately, followed by 12-month payments of $4,025 over the next year. And then basically all of those 96 change to the pole and fixture contribution, which essentially she did say that once, if the board opted to go this route, they would immediately change to that contribution even before we finished this payment. So they dropped the monthly bill by $1,500. So while it's large payments up front for the next 12 months, essentially saving $1,500 for the life of those fixtures now. The buyback, when calculated out, or the payback, was almost exactly 5 years, and then you're making $1,500 a month forever. So there it is. We've gone back and forth with Alliant as much as I think they're willing to, and that's where it is.
Sounds like long-term is cheaper for us to own the poles than it is to continue to.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But that was the thing too, I asked all summer long if it's something we could plan for, budget for, and they said no, it'd have to be a payment. So it'd be an unbudgeted, payment from reserves with the 50% down now, and then we could just basically, we're already bumping up that street light line for next year anyway due to the audit, bump it up some more to make up the difference for this for 12 months.
Yeah.
Where would the funds come from, Matt, if we decided to do this?
So, as JJ said, it would. Theoretically, it would come from reserves, but the budget's performing well this year. There's still months to go.
So we may have some leftover funds this year?
Revenues are performing better than budgeted. Expenditures are less than budgeted. So we may be able to afford this by the end of the year, but we may not either. So, but hopefully it's just not the entirety. Hopefully it's not, $48,310.
We're not going to have to take that all out of reserves, is what you're saying. Worst case scenario is that's not the worst case scenario.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I got to.
Wow.
Yep.
It's true.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we should go ahead and do it myself.
Want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the Alliant Street Light buyback.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. John, do you have something else to add in?
Yeah, I just have a question, like, how does this happen, where we don't pay either the village or the developers up front? How does that,
Well-
how do we fix it moving forward, I guess?
It is fixed. We have changed the developer agreement so that in the future, and one of the reasons that JJ went back to Alliant is because I said, well, where exactly does it say that they can do this? And
They couldn't find
There's
it.
been some, I suppose, gray areas and disputes. I will,
They got the switch,
in
they can
Alliance
do anything
defense,
they want.
they could have initially, I think we talked about this in April, they're governed by the PSC, they had every right to bill us for 2 years of the new ones, $45,000, they could have dropped the bill on us, and they opted not to do that, so.
so I think part of the fact that JJ was saying, well, gee, we kind of like to know where you have this authority, I think that they made a better deal than they would have otherwise.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second then to approve buyback of the 96 poles.
In the fixture.
In the fixtures, correct. Any further discussion? Having heard none, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. All right, so next item 6E is the private driveway 4026 County Road N, the Houston access from N to the second driveway, the emergency building. Discuss and consider obtaining an easement for the town and the village utilization for the emergency services building access. That's
Well-
the road that goes down and back in the back of the building.
Great.
For the,
On the side here,
EMS company.
I've been so excited about talking about this, that I kept bringing it up, but here we go. When we made the decision about paving, then the question was asked, who owns, do we have an easement, or do we own where, part of the area that's going to be paved? And it turns out that there was kind of this urban myth that it existed. It didn't. We've confirmed that. We've been working with Houston's in terms of they're going to be responsible for getting a legal description to us. They've hired a surveyor to do that. I've primarily been working with Dennis Richardson and also Dale Houston. So it's just a matter now of getting the description. We'll have a driveway easement, and we'll work out the terms. And we're going to try to keep it as simple as possible.
Now, Lee, who's involved from the town then?
Chris Hampton.
Chris, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah. And Dennis has been kind of my contact person with the Houstons. This is actually owned by Dale and Joan. So this will clear up this legal issue. Tonight, what I'd say is, as I understand it, they tabled this at the town meeting. I would suggest that we simply table it till next time, and hopefully we'll have all of the language and the specificity as to where the easement is for the board.
So they can just move forward and approve it.
Or whatever the board is
Oh, yeah.
comfortable with.
It's got to get addressed.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Lee on this? So we just need the legal description, then. the
Yeah,
document prepared, and then.
we're not going, we're going to keep the legalese to a minimum. Dennis has extracted that from me, so, okay. But we should be, I'm hoping that we'll have everything ready for the next board meeting. And if the board is comfortable saying just get it done, I will. I know that the town, Chris told me tonight that they had tabled it, so it's entirely up to you what you want to do.
Did you say earlier if we table it 3 times, or what happens when it drops off?
No, if you table something and you don't take it off the table each time, then if it stays on the table, then it's supposed to drop off. We have always been very liberal about that, and we've made sure that people understand that that's kind of Robert's Rules light, isn't really Robert's Rules. So.
Without the legal language, I'm comfortable with, approving this, obtaining an easement, and then once the easement language is drafted up, we take a look at that.
And approve it again. Is there any other thoughts from any of the trustees?
Agree with John.
That makes sense.
Okay, do you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to move forward with obtaining an easement for the town and village to utilize the emergency service building access along the private driveway at 4026 County Road and second driveway of emergency services building.
I second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Having heard none, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstained? Motion carries. On to new business. Item 7A, discuss and consider sound application for Elisa Tree, or I'm not sure.
True.
True. Thank you. At Fireman's Park. I'm assuming it's,
I'll make a motion to approve the sound application. permit.
I'll second.
okay, I got a motion and a second for the sound application permit. Any further discussion?
Are we invited?
It's a park, you could just show up.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Karaoke.
All right, any further discussion then? There's a motion, okay, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Item 7B, discuss and consider operator's license for the year July 2018 through 2019, June 2019. Are we already past July?
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's the standard. Michael, I got it. And there's Heather, Megan, Catherine, Daniel, Destiny, Jennifer, all listed on here. Chief, any issues with any of these individuals? No. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the new operator licenses for Heather Bain, Megan Paskey, Catherine Gitter, Daniel Grimes, Destiny Castillo, and Jennifer Meyer for the year July 2018 to June 2019.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstained? Motion carries. Item 7C, discuss potential village cable channel via
That's what we're doing next.
TDS.
Go ahead, if you want to.
Lisa has a memo in your packet
Oops,
on this one.
not that one, the one before
So
it.
basically, we were approached by TDS because they are doing fiber in the village, and we have the option of having a cable channel through TDS. However, as the memo states, it's with the cost of the equipment that would be needed for the channel between 6 and 8.
8 and 9.
8 and 9.
8 and 9, sorry.
We may have the agendas.
For that equipment.
We got the packet.
They also wanted to know about franchise fees, which we currently get 3% from Charter, which we will get from TDS. I contacted TDS to tell them, that we were meeting
Email with
tonight, if they wanted it within 10 days. And we do have the option of later adding it, if we, wanted to wait until the project was complete to see how many residents we do have, with using TDS, if that is something that you choose to do. So,
This is in place of, would be in place of the Charter channel, or this would be in addition?
in addition,
Different committee meetings.
Do we have to amend our cable ordinance?
no, because it doesn't specify.
Doesn't specify?
No.
Okay.
Just adds.
I don't have Charter. What's on the Charter cable channel?
The same things that are on YouTube.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Oh,
And I would think, as residents more, continue to use the technology, you can watch any meeting on YouTube where the cable channel just runs on a loop.
Yep.
It's not as user-friendly. I'm sure there's some that still watch, but I don't know what the viewership is. I don't, now looking at it, where when Charter went into place and paid the equipment at that time, that was the only way to get the information out there. Now that times have changed, I don't know that it's.
If we want to pass on,
worth the money.
if we want to pass on it, do we have to make a motion, or just,
You could just wait till budget time and just not include it in the budget.
okay. I think we're
Just discussing it.
I make a motion to table that.
There's no need for
Yeah.
motion.
Oh, good,
Just
all right,
discuss.
We discussed.
got it.
All right, then item 8 is reports from village board, commissions, and committees. First one up is Deer Grove EMS. I don't know who wants to go on that one.
go ahead, Troy.
Go ahead, Melissa.
Tagger.
No tag backs.
August 16th. That one. Yeah, holy cow. Trying to remember what all happened. Let's see.
We've sent the contract emergency medical services to the town of Pleasant Springs for their review, and once they approve it, then it will come to the town of Cottage Grove, the village Cottage Grove, and then village of Deerfield. We approved the LifeQuest contract, and we're waiting to hear back on the collective bargaining agreement. And Melissa and Christy Williams and who's the third person, Melissa, on the hiring committee for?
Is it Greg or Gary?
Gary, yeah.
Gary, yeah, thank you.
Gary from the town of Deerfield. We did get a little bit about the Deer Grove EMS, but it was incomplete, so we're gonna have more discussion this Thursday at the regular meeting, which is here this time, I believe. Any questions?
Not a question, but I happened to talk to Dan Barker about a different issue, and he's reviewed this and said he made some suggestions or some changes, so.
With the agreement?
The Lifeline.
Oh,
The
okay.
Lifeline
Oh,
insurance,
yeah, it's
yeah.
on there to discuss and consider
Yeah.
the Deer Grove EMS contract, Lifeline Phone System. So are we waiting for him to?
No, he approved it and made some suggestions and to whoever his contact person is.
Does that mean we want to table this because the committee hasn't seen those changes, or is that?
No, I think we're good, to go if the
Oh.
committee's telling us that they're.
Yeah, no, we're
And
there.
And the lawyer's seen it, the EMS?
Yeah, great.
All right, is there a motion then to consider the Lifeline billing systems agreement?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second to again approve the Lifeline billing systems contract with Deer Grove EMS. Any further discussion?
Every time that we do have a contract with them, it gets a little bit better for us, so,
That is
It's
true.
always good.
yeah.
You remember that. Any other discussion? All right, haven't heard none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Okay, moving on to parks.
Yeah, one of the things we discussed at the Parks meeting was the consideration of a trail from the Quarry Ridge development along the north side of that, where it meets the business park, and ideally connecting that up with the trail that's going north-south along Highway N. So that is our goal, to try to get that. Right now, there are trails around the pond that are heavily used by folks that work in the business park, a lot of walkers, so this would have a dual use of giving those people more trails to walk on, and the residents having them a safe bike path to Highway N, and then north and south on the bike path as it's extended, or when it gets extended. So we discussed that. We also discussed an update on the Bakken Park splash pad. What am I leaving out, Sean?
That was it, it was quick.
Okay.
And just on the bike path, Quarry Ridge one, I think at least in Public Works, we were made aware that there might be some potential grants available for that.
Well, the extension to the north along N.
Yes.
Yeah.
You were just talking about an
That's
east-west,
actually coming up.
an actually east-west little spur off of it at the parks. We would take land in lieu of parkland and make it into a trail.
Oh,
So,
I see.
yeah, that's why it relates to parks. Yeah. Right? Do I have that right?
Correct.
Okay, good.
Sorry, I was just assuming the whole thing.
Yeah.
Different discussion. Any questions for Jim? All right. Law Enforcement Committee.
We met August 28th, discussed the Dane County Restorative Court and Cottage Grove Police Department. Again, this is an item that requires no funds from us to participate in. The committee approved it. It is an item here for approval also on the village board. The idea is to take folks between, 18 and 20...
17 to 25.
25, try to take a different path than the normal court system to help them straighten things out a little bit, and just like we do with the peer court, basically.
Yep, and it expands the age, and it would be an agreement for Cottage Grove, and it's already in Madison, Fitchburg, and they're trying to expand it to all of Dane County. But it needs an MOU, and the MOU has to get approved by the village board and signed by the president.
I'm assuming there's success in those programs thus far, and that's why it's expanding. I would think, I'm just.
Yeah, we just discussed this at peer court too.
Okay.
That
It's just.
Definitely a good way to go.
For the MOU, they have to do like a training, right?
There are the people that do the mediation, so to speak, and are trained, those are all volunteers. And some would be from our community, or maybe none are from our community, or there's no volunteers. But the MOU is basically an operational agreement between the police department and the court as to who we would refer, who we can't refer, and how the process works for the victims and the subjects that may be charged, and what we should do if they don't complete their process in the court. So it's nothing that, from my understanding, binds the village to anything other than how we operate in their court.
And there's some specific offenses that are not eligible: criminal traffic violations and misdemeanor crimes against vulnerable adults or resulting from domestic violence, child abuse, child neglect, and sexual assault offenses will not be considered for referral to the CRC.
Also discussed capital funding for 2019, whether a new squad is more important or the
Radios.
the new handheld radios,
Radios,
and Chief felt like the radios were a bigger priority than the police car at this point, that all of ours are running sufficiently.
And you're going to be testing some radios? Is that
We are
ongoing?
testing radios, and yeah, it does seem like from an officer safety perspective, that's the way to go, is get the radios and
Okay.
jump back into the car replacement next year.
Are they're working inside buildings well, in commercial buildings? Is
Better
that
than our current radios.
okay?
And our next meeting is next Tuesday at 5:30. I'll make a motion to approve the restorative justice program, that we participate in that.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. All right, next item is the Flint Hall Committee.
Well, just discuss the budget.
I'm not on the committee, but I can tackle this. Really, the purpose, we talked about budget. Budgets remain the same as last year, $6,500 divided by three entities: the town, the village, and the Cottage Grove Lions. There was some discussion about redoing the wood floor, and it was discussed, decided not to do that. Other than that, there's no other major issues that need to be addressed.
Just one question, so does that committee, how often do they meet?
Once a year.
Once a year?
Yeah.
And right now, the village president's invited, but we don't have any representation from the village board on this committee. Is that?
I think it's 2 citizen members. I don't think there's anybody from the village board.
Yeah.
Right.
Two citizen members.
Well, there's Larry Keek is a citizen. I forget who is, I guess, who's on the committee?
I think it's Andy, I forget the name, last name, but it's two citizens from the village.
I believe it's Andy Eberhard, he's also on the public.
Yes.
Then after the committee meets, do they come back and ask for the annual 1/3 from the village, or how do we authorize this expenditure that we contribute every year, I guess is my question.
Don't know.
It's just
In the budget.
in the budget and.
They send us a bill and we pay it?
I know in emergency government, I just send a email indicating that, we approved the $1,500 budget to be assessed half and half with the town and the village, and it becomes a line item on the village, the budget itself.
Yeah, but as a trustee, I guess what I'm getting at is, so we have citizen members that are authorizing expenditures to the village. Is it, I don't know, maybe it just seems a
No.
little odd.
Well, there's a review of the budget and use of fund, oh, that's for the past year, how they use the funds that, and then they determined the budget for 2019.
And I think Chris is actually probably the chair because the agenda is
Yeah.
submitted by him, so should we seek to have it, it's only once a year, I even volunteer, but.
Well, I'll tell you, for the next meeting, I have a history of Flint Hall and how it works and those issues. And I think it's a good thing for the board to take a look at, just like Troy was saying, how much bang for the buck do you really get? So I'll be happy to share that with you.
I'd be happy to hear it. I'm Pearl Flint Hall because the Legion meets there, I know the Lions meet there, the Boy Scouts Historical Society, so it's a good anchor point in both communities that brings people together. I'm just kind of questioning the procedures.
Okay.
And also, I'll share, because I mentioned how many village citizens used it last year, town residents, there were 4.
For town?
4 town residents rented the facility
And how many?
in 2017.
How many in the village?
What was that?
How many in the
in the
village
village?
Village was 15 last year.
that rented it? A lot more people
This-
use it, like you said, through Lions and
Yeah.
the Boy Scouts, and American Legion.
As of 8/31, there were 13 village citizens that had rented and 3 town residents
For rentals.
up to this point, 2018. And it shows here that the Flint Hall Committee is Andy Eberhardt, Scott Schurman.
Scott, that's true.
Please send to Village President Jack Hendrick, who was not present.
Okay. We'll look for our history lesson next time. Next item is then Public Works. I can start with this and then let JJ jump in.
Sure.
JJ and Mike, if you guys could maybe so these items, if you don't mind.
Okay, so we met on September 4th. Old business, we just had an update on the bike path. This is the bike path that will be going through Boston Park, connecting us to the Glacial Railroad to Mass, basically to the rest of the state. That little last segment is falling either in the village or in a town or between us and Mass and Suffolk County. So we did receive, good news is that we received 1 grant in that front. Again, that starts planning and everything else, and this wouldn't be done until 2021-ish, depending on, the connector feeder into our village. Then there was an update on Conservancy Court, and up until that time, we had received quite a bit of rain, so not a lot done there because it's just wet. The nice thing is that the contractor was able to get in there at least create a channel so that water wouldn't continue to expand, and as well as addressing 2 of the homes and their issues with there's some either into a more appropriate place and not just lying out the street. And then spend a bulk of the time really talking about the budget, which I'm sure JJ will touch on. That's a flyby. You want to take anything from there?
Briefly with the budget, you'll all see it again in the next couple months. Essentially, the only major item in the operating lines was the street light adjustment. And then staffing requests that those of you who've been through this before, you've probably seen them all from me. Otherwise, I don't believe the budget had anything major at any operating lines. So yeah, I can jump right to A. We just got an email this morning, actually, just after 9 a.m. In response to, reached out to 3 officials at the DOT, and we just heard back that this one individual, at least, thinks that the agreement John brought up about the roundabouts is the only agreement that she was aware of being on file. So,
Just a little bit of history, jumping back 4 years. In 2014, we met with several representatives from the DOT. At that point, we wanted to either work with a private contractor or even volunteer to have them do some maintenance in the roundabouts. And they sent us a response back just in June saying essentially that it's held up in general counsel, and even to this day, they don't have an answer for us. So that's pretty frustrating, but they did say, as a consolation, the good news is we're almost finished with a roundabout maintenance policy that we can help you with. So that's where the DOT is at.
Did they have an estimated time when that would be done? That's,
I don't know.
So it's a
No,
meantime.
they didn't specify in the email, and,
why commit if you don't have to?
right. Other than that, I mean,
Now you're
we,
starting to get it.
yeah, I think on that, like I said, the response just came, and it's been a few weeks since the most recent inquiry, and it just came this morning. We haven't had a chance to talk with me, Matt, Mike, myself, and see what that actually means, but it may be starting to get some clarification at least on ownership. Like you said, we just want,
we should be able to obtain a right-of-way permit from the state to do the work.
Yeah.
I think ideally, we'd like to hire someone to potentially do the maintenance. So that's the part where they haven't been able to get back to us on the private, having the private sector handle that. And as far as the county, the county's maintenance responsibilities, because that was talked about as well, Melissa's looking into that a little further, but from the our initial research looks like their maintenance was real general maintenance responsibilities, like mowing the grass. The funds that the village received to do the nicer plantings and things like that in the roundabout would be the village's responsibility. Is that correct, Mike?
Yes. It mentioned colored concrete, stamped concrete out there, that those were enhancements that were requested by the village, and those would be borne by the village in the agreement. So that, the interior landscaping of the roundabouts. So, and that's referring to, I believe, just the I-94 roundabouts, not the TT and roundabout to the north, which is the county roundabout.
Have we been receiving funds for maintenance up to this point, and if so, where have those funds been going?
No.
Okay. So that's new to us, then,
It was
getting
just
funds.
the initial funds that were received to do the work. Yeah.
It was, it's called community sensitive design. It's an amount based on how big the interchange was, and it wasn't, my understanding, it wasn't expenditures of the village. It was an amount that could be applied up to, 6 figures, and the village opted to go with improvements that would be well below that, so that if it ever, rose up higher, it wouldn't come out of the village's pocket. So there was a smaller amount of improvements that were authorized at that time.
So did the county do the initial plantings and stuff that are on there now?
It was a DOT-led project, I believe, for even county end.
No secret is held closer by the government than the roundabout. I mean, we have contacted so many different people just to try to get it.
Circle it.
yes, we had, and also, we'll go up to Mike, because we've got to discuss and consider here about the village seeking park and ride grants for a couple of the bike path projects that we're looking to get some grant funding for.
2012, village reconstructed quite a bit of Main Street from, let's say, the Old Town area up to Cottage Grove Road, and put in an 8-foot bike path. That was 50% funded by Park and Ride at that time. 2013, we went north of Cottage Grove Road and did a block up to Well House 3, and that was 50% funded by the Park and Ride program. Park and Ride program went away for a while due to different priorities within the county, and it's coming back. They're soliciting projects for next year, and we were looking at the Main Street from Well House 3 up to the interstate, where there's really no trail, but on the east side, continuing that trail from Well House 3 up to the Commerce Park, and even converting some of the sidewalks to bike path up in that area to continue the trail right up to where the DOT did put in bike path around the roundabouts and up to TT and Park and Ride up there. That's 50% funding for the eligible items by the county. And so we had a resolution, I think, in the packet for that. Yeah. And then the other project was Vilas Road from Wellbridge to Progress Drive. About 6 to 8 years ago, the county helped fund some base course that went in to put in an off-road trail along Vilas Road. Then you have the creek crossing. So right now, if you're a pedestrian, you can walk on the gravel. It's and then over, the trail. And we had a couple alternatives back in that time to either extend the box culverts or put a pedestrian bridge across at that point. And so we had a resolution, we talked to the county about that project too, and a resolution for the county to participate 50% in completing that fairly short segment there that ultimately could also connect to the state trail that heads to Madison. So those are two separate project resolutions to keep those separate, I guess, from the county's eyes of how they would fund those.
Does that include the installation of that bridge on Vilas Road then?
That would be up to the board. I think we don't know what the status is of that negotiation or what. I think that'd be a preferable option, but I mean, that's if a deal.
Half price is better than full price, right?
And we would be able to get grant money even though it's 8 feet wide versus 10?
Yes.
Okay.
Just based on the volume, and we were able to make that case on South Main Street, carry that 8 feet through that area, just because of the eliminating the right-of-way and the number of, the volume expected on it, so.
Okay.
The Vilas project, I believe you saw in the financial management plan, the number there. The extension from Well 3 up to the Commerce Park would be presumably, hopefully, half park and half TID funds. It would be a TID project out there. So.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2018-17 regarding the resolution requesting the Dane County Park and Ride grant for Vilas Road.
Motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion on that particular resolution?
Mike or JJ, would it be appropriate for that motion to include then including the underlying master agreement or underlying agreement for each of those resolutions?
I don't know that we have that yet, but it's the county agreement. We have to look
Yeah,
at.
well, there's an underlying agreement. When we get it, I've already been told that the changes that we requested 4 or 5 years ago, that they will go along with those, and so.
Your memo.
So I guess we could just keep it with the resolutions for now.
So we're going to adjust the motion for a second? No?
Yeah, this motion second for the resolutions is fine.
Okay, thank you. All right, any further discussion? Having heard none, those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Motion carries. Unless you want to do that again?
Yes, I'll make a motion for resolution, to approve Resolution 2018-18 regarding resolution requesting the Dane County Park and Ride grant for Main Street.
I'll second that as well.
All right. Any further discussion on that resolution? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Motion carries.
On page 3.
Yes. Emergency Government Committee.
We met Wednesday, September 5th. Alliant Energy had some representatives there discussing gas lines, kind of in relation to what happened in some Prairie, and some safety stops, how to recognize their equipment, some of the routine maintenance that they do with safety valves. Pretty interesting discussion. Discussed flooding in Dane County. The only area that seems to be affected in Cottage Grove was Ridge Road in the town was closed for a period of time because of water running across it. Working with Fire Chief Wolf and Landmark, possibly setting up a tabletop exercise identified in Hydrus or propane leak situation, probably the most dangerous for a wider body of citizens. So, and what else? The school had received some grants, to put some. They got cameras, I believe, at the high school now, and they've got some additional locks, and they've applied for more grants to get cameras at the middle school and the other schools, waiting to hear back. Next meeting is October 3rd at 6:30.
Were those through the Attorney General's fund?
What was that?
Were those cameras and such through the Attorney General's fund that's going through all the state? Is that?
I think it was all grant money, actually. They got $190-some thousand, if I remember right.
The
Is
Attorney
it?
General's grant.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And the second wave is for the extra money
Yeah.
that wasn't used during the first round.
First round?
And-
Okay.
And they're continuing to improve their emergency action plan, basically, in different types of events, what do you do, and that sort of thing, so.
Okay. Very good. All right, then, the next committee was the Community Development Authority. That was myself, so we spent on September 10th discussing marketing of the TIDs or TIFs. Those are the new ones for the commercial park beyond 90, the area down by CES, and the area behind Wisconsin State Bank, connecting some of that area there. So those were three new ones that were passed in July. So Aaron and staff have some further direction from authority on what to pursue and some other ideas. So he'll come back at our next meeting and present those. Aaron, anything else you want to add to that?
When we were kind of looking at previous years, we had done those ads in the Mad Rap magazine, and we were talking about maybe reallocating those funds toward other projects. So we'll come back in October and kind of weigh that against what else we can do.
We were putting 100% of the advertisement dollars into one big regional magazine. I think that was good for a couple of years, but the thought is maybe take a year off of doing that and spread those dollars around to, just diversify it a little bit.
Try something different.
Any questions?
I would say that I was there too, and that, we were talking about the dollars being about 5,000. What would be the possibility of adding some cost to that in order to really make an impact and for our community? Spend money to make money. An idea.
Can be discussed in the budget cycle, I
Yep.
think. All right. Next committee then was the Ad Hoc Architectural Review Committee. Who was on that? Is that-
I'm on that committee, but I was not able to attend. I think, is Jack? Yeah, Jack.
And
Yeah.
he's present.
Okay.
Basically, they approved the Oakstone facility with conditions, and it was passed on to the Plan Commission, and we'll talk about it later in the agenda under Plan Commission.
Okay. All right, then next is Utility Commission.
All right, Utility Commission, we met September 12th, 5 o'clock. An update, we did get pricing for lighting on that north tower out by the interstate. My packet had $3,800, but I think it was closer to $6,000 to account for the second one. So about $6,000 to actually put a light. And I have pictures on here if anyone's interested, to light up the water tower at night so you can see it coming from Milwaukee. I think the woods prohibits it coming from Madison, and Madison's close enough where most people know where Cottage Grove is, but it actually enhanced the entrance into the community as well as, the TIF as well. Most of the other items were budget related. The commission approved all of JJ's requests, and that'll be discussed at budget time. Next meeting's October 10th.
Any questions, John? All right, then we'll move on to Plan Commission. A whole host of things going on there last week.
I missed that one.
We'll catch you up now.
Yeah, get ready.
I know, it wasn't on video, so I wasn't even able to watch it yet.
Well, it was on video.
I kept trying YouTube and the village website.
We had technical difficulties, it will be up soon.
Okay, because I tried it too. But it wasn't that one.
I attended as someone in the crowd, so I can give an update. Or we could just jump right into the...
Let's just jump in.
Jump right into the agenda
We're
here.
right
So
in.
basically, everything approved down to, if everyone has the agenda up, down to item 19, which was tabled. So then everything basically that was approved at the Planning Commission, everything approved unanimously with the exception of 18. There was 5 members there, there was 3 approved, 1 voted no and 1 abstained, and then they voted to table number 19. And the reason to table is they asked, I believe, they asked the applicant to take this back to the CDA with the phase plan for the larger project that they presented to the Planning Commission.
These are all action numbers too, so we can
Yep.
take them as we go here.
Okay. Anything to add, Matt or Aaron, to that?
We can just move to A and work our way
Okay.
through.
All right, then, Planning Commission, item A, then discuss and consider request from Houston Company for approval for ETGJ, a certificate map, split a 5.2 acre from existing 35.9 acre parcel located at 2621 Coffee Town Road. It gives a parcel number on the agenda here, in the town of Cottage Grove. So this is,
Pretty straightforward. This is
Yeah.
the headquarters campus in Houston now on Coffee Town Road. They'd like to buy, as it says, 5 acres or so from the neighboring property. The CSM is just the mechanism to split that off so they can buy it. They would also rezone the property to match the zoning of the existing headquarters, but that's under Dane County zoning, and so we don't have any oversight in that, so we'd just be looking at the CSM. We recommend approval. A couple of conditions. One is picking up a few details to make sure the zoning matches their ordinances, and then 2, asking for a dedication of an additional 17 feet of frontage along the right-of-way, which would make the property line on that 5 acres match the right-of-way line on the existing headquarters.
and that was okay with Houston's. All right. I'll make a motion then to approve the ETJ certificate map for Houston's to go forward with this.
I second that.
Any further discussion? All right, having heard none, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstained? Motion carries. Item XB, discuss and consider the request for Soul Song LLC for conditional use permit to conduct classes up to 15 people as a home occupancy at residence located at 300 Lindsay Way.
I believe there's an applicant here in case there's any questions, but basically, so basically they've been operating a business out of their home for over 10 years now, with generally 1 and 2 students at a time for music, yoga, things like that. They're looking to get permission to hold larger classes, looking for permission for up to 15, but it sounds like most of them are going to be smaller than that. We had 2 appearances at the public hearing, both in favor of the conditional use permit. We also received 6 emails in favor, 1 email against, and 1 phone call against. The ones against, I think, just had some parking concerns. This was approved at the Plan Commission with a few conditions. The first being that this applies just to these residents, that this property is not transferable. It does limit the class sizes to 15, as we said. And then we just asked that any larger capacity classes, 10 or over, would be scheduled so there's at least half an hour in between, so anybody parking could kind of turn over, reduce the disruption.
Would this mainly be in the evenings, or? Is
I'm
this-
sorry?
With your classes, is this during the day or in the evenings?
They'll be primarily during the day. There may be a few evening classes, but we're going to keep them early in the evening so that they end probably no later than 8 o'clock.
Okay.
And that's pretty much standard for our business at this point as well. I mean, there have been a few students that have come, 8 to 8:30 or something like that over the course of the 12 years we've been in business. But we really want things quiet and down to the point where people are ready to go to bed and enjoy their homes just like we are, because it's in our home.
What's the age range of your students?
Right now, our students are primarily younger people. The yoga and that part of it will be adult students, and a lot of those are community members. And just by way of addressing the parking issue, one of the things that we that Cassie spoke with the committee earlier in the week was we'll be offering incentives for folks to carpool, to bike, to walk. Many of our clients are already within a couple of 3 blocks, 4 blocks radius of the facility now. So I think that the parking is something that we can pretty well handle. We're going to be very careful with our clients as well about where do you park and where you don't park, and we're going to keep it away from our neighbors. We have 286 feet, I believe, of footage because it is a large corner lot at the corner of Lindsay and Sandpiper. So we're going to be very careful about that to make sure that it stays out of the way. As they increase the current garage from 2 to 3 car, that's actually going to give us the possibility of having, we're thinking probably about 5 potential cars there, so that would take it off the street. That would avoid any problems with snow removal or anything that way from the standpoint of infrastructure in the village.
Is there anything in our ordinance that limits the amount of customers, a home, business currently?
No, it doesn't put a specific number on it. It just, it becomes grounds for conditional use permit if there's potential to be a nuisance. So we decided to have them come here and get the conditional use permit just to have the Plan Commission and you guys review the potential impacts on the street.
So it comes down to a judgment call from the Plan Commission or the village board as far as your personal opinions on impact to the neighborhood.
Because a lot of it's location-based, and as Mr. Rushka said, it is on a corner lot. They do have a lot of frontage where they can park in front of the property. They can park in the driveway.
I make a motion to approve the request for using this location for Soul Song at 300 Lindsay Way for these classes.
Second.
Motion second, any further discussion?
And you mean with the condition?
With the
set
condition of no
forth?
more than 15, that is correct, yeah.
Any further discussion, clarification? Okay, all those in favor then?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Motion carries. Item C then is discuss and consider request from Madison United Rugby for approval of a site plan amendment to add a shed at their facility located at 513 Clark Street. We have some gentlemen from Yorkville.
So they're walking up here. Basically what they're looking for is approval to construct a shed on the site, 22 by 30 feet, basically to house some of their groundskeeping equipment. They had some issues with, the board's got some a while back. So for security and also just to keep it looking clear out there. The Plan Commission did recommend approval with just the condition noting that this is something kind of extra beyond the site plan that was included in the agreement with the club and the village. This doesn't really change anything that's subject to that. If you guys have anything to add on top of that, it's going to match the existing shelter.
Yep, it's just gonna look like the same type of structure that we currently have. It's just, our goal is so that way when you walk out there on a Saturday or on a Monday, it looks just like Phoebe Bakken Park. You can't tell the difference between anything other than we have a fenced in area. Stuff will be put away. We've already put up some privacy fence to control some of our trash cans so they're not blowing around, and our dumpsters, so they're kind of hidden. We're just trying to keep that appearance and kind of clean it up generally.
I'll make a motion to approve Madison United Rugby for approval of a site plan amendment to add a shed at their facility located at 513 Clark Street.
Second. We have a
2 seconds.
competition over the second, but we do have a second. Rock, paper, scissors on that. All right, then, any further discussion?
I just wanted to mention that I had some concerns that, you know, we hadn't gotten contact from Rugby Club in terms of the underlying agreement, and I think that some lines of communication are getting opened up, which is important because that's been sitting around since 2008, and so my heartburn went away.
On that anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to get to this when we got to the section of new agenda items, but Jeremy hopefully will be coming back on the first, actually October 15th, meeting. So we're looking forward to that.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Maybe abstain? Motion carries.
Oh, when are you gonna build that?
So we are now going to get right on the phone with Clary. They sent me an email when we had the planning committee meeting was on the 12th. That following morning, I had an email like by 8 o'clock from Clary, like, how'd the meeting go last night? We're to the next meeting, so we'll be in communication with them, and as soon as we can get it on their schedule, I mean, we hope to have it up and done yet this year so we can
Great.
put everything away for the winter properly this year.
Yeah.
Great.
Sounds good.
But no, thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Jeremy, can I see you out there?
Okay, D is discuss and consider request John Snyder LLC for approval of preliminary plat for West Drumlin subdivision.
I don't know if Aaron wants to cover it, but it's basically the land to the east of Glacial Drumlin that the school district sold off.
Oh, okay.
Yep, so it's right across the road from Damascus, from the school.
10 lots or something like that?
Asking for,
We have 10 parcels, obviously the street and everything's there already, the laterals, sewer and water laterals were put in for each lot back when the streets were built. So there's really no public infrastructure left, it's really just a matter of drawing the lines on the ground and splitting up the parcels.
And what did we find out about the duplex one? There was a property that was a question.
Yeah, there was,
It's
they'll all be single family.
Will they?
We were under the impression when we made the offer that was a duplex lot, but it was not, so we just kept it as a single family as the original zoning.
Okay.
And John held a neighborhood.
I was there, that's why I asked.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because that was a question by citizens too as well, and at that point, you didn't know yet because there was confusion on the map.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll make the motion for approval of the preliminary plat for the West Drummond subdivision for John Schneider LLC.
I'll second that.
For this, I would ask we reference the conditions, the planning conditions from the staff report dated for this evening, because John's already done some work since the plan commission on the covenants and has addressed some of the previous approval conditions, and then there was also a staff report from the MSA that we get their conditions as well.
I motion with those conditions.
My second still stands.
All right.
I live right around the corner, so we've been waiting.
All right. Is there any further discussion?
I just have a couple questions because, you know, there is a main road Damascus going in. You have the school with the driveways right across the road. Have you given consideration about like all the traffic and like rush hour? Because it's basically Damascus will take you up to the subdivision up top and just with the school buses and the traffic before and after
Yeah,
school?
we intend to do what we can to limit the amount of traffic that's coming in and out of the subdivision during school hours. Obviously, there's lots of subcontractors and various people that are coming in. We can't completely prevent them from being there, but we're going to make basically hours. We're going to work with the school district a little bit, just ask them what the preferred hours are that we're moving equipment in and out, as well as deliveries that are going to be coming in and out. I'm suspecting that'll be before 7 and like 7 o'clock to 8:30 will be kind of those preferred don't operate and bring in machinery at that time. And then that 2:30 to 4 o'clock window. Obviously, it can't always be perfectly honored, but that's the type of suggestions we're going to make to the subcontractors to deliver services and that kind of thing, especially with heavier machinery and large equipment and that kind of thing. And then we have not completely thought through what exactly we're going to be able to do for signage to kind of keep kids away from playing in that zone. I think that's a little bit of a concern. I know that some of the other neighbors brought that up. I don't know that we can really fence it all off or something. I think that might actually cause more problems. So I think I'm just trying to be cognizant of that concern and doing the best that we can during the project to address it. We won't necessarily be developing every lot or building on every lot. So each individual builder that will be there, we just want to make sure that they're aware that that's a school zone and put those notifications out there so that they can be as cognizant of that issue as well.
As far as that goes too, are the driveways going to be set a certain way or to help limit?
Yeah, we've had conversations about that. I don't know, there's only really a couple of options for the driveways. There's 2 corner lots that would potentially have driveways on the side. I forget, it's Killian and another street there.
Manly.
Manly, that we could have driveways going there, and I do believe that we can get that approved. And then the other ones will all be out on the front of Damascus. There has been some suggestion about making combined driveways, but I don't think that's the way that we will go. I think it's not necessarily great for the values of the property, and I feel like it's best if they're individual driveways. There is the corner lot that's set on Damascus that is on the south side, or the north side, has an easement that runs through it that kind of limits where the driveway is going to have to go. So that's going to end up, I believe, on Manly. If it's Manly or Killian, I don't have it in front of me.
Killian.
Killian, sorry, Killian. So we're still having some thoughts about what exactly is going to be the best kind of attack, because that is actually a bus stop right on that corner. So trying to make that the most appropriate for their current condition.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? All right, there's a motion and a second then for approval. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. E, then discuss and consider proposed zoning ordinance amendment creating an outdoor commercial entertainment accessory land use. This is, I believe, what it's related, but I'll let you guys explain.
Yeah, this is somewhat prompted by the next item in the list, the Oakstone project. Currently, the way our ordinance is written, there's an outdoor commercial entertainment land use. It's allowed in a very limited number of places, and some examples listed in the ordinance of that use are things like commercial swimming pools or amusement parks, which is really a scale of project above and beyond something like Oakstone that we're going to look at, which is just going to have some outdoor seating and a volleyball court. It's a totally different scale of impacts on the surrounding neighborhood. Rather than make projects like that go as a planned unit development, we're recommending altering the zoning ordinance, creating an accessory outdoor commercial entertainment for those smaller scale things that are incidental to an indoor use. So these would be conditional use within planned office, planned industrial, planned business, planned office district. So we recommend approval with the text that's in.
It's right there.
Any questions for Aaron on that? Any discussion on that? Any motion on that?
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed zoning ordinance amendment creating an outdoor commercial entertainment accessory land use.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second then. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? You abstained, motion
Pass
carries.
Steele.
What? You haven't abstained?
Nope.
Oh, okay. All right.
Sorry.
I thought I heard it.
Sorry about that.
A trustee over there. All right, item F then is discuss and consider request from Folkestone conditional use permit to operate outdoor commercial entertainment. And again, this is outdoor city bar and volleyball. It's where it land use and operate indoor commercial entertainment, bar, restaurant, volleyball, courts, etc. Land use and with a liquor license to be located on northeast corner of Commercial Parkway in rural.
There's actually two items here. The first one is the conditional use permit, then the site plan. The conditional use permit makes use of the limited ordinance we just approved 30 seconds ago. And then the site plan as well. We have Russ Owens and Andy Reed here, they're the designers of the project. Or if you guys just want to kind of walk everybody through it briefly and
Yeah, it's like Aaron said, it's at the corner of Herb Road, Commerce Drive, or Parkway, I should say. And it's going to be an indoor volleyball court with 2 outdoor volleyball courts with an attached bar and restaurant area. We've developed a parking lot with the help of JST Engineering to accommodate adequate parking for everyone that would be inside the building. Hours for operation would be like, I think they're planning on 11 a.m. until midnight. And I think volleyball tournaments, those are all in the evening or on the weekend. Is that right?
Yeah, there's leagues during the week, all 5 nights, and then they'll have tournaments, host tournaments here and there, indoor or outdoor, depending on the season. So.
Yeah.
So at ad hoc, you had brought, I thought that you had said that there would be two nights, or 2 to 4 nights of leagues, of games?
Yeah, like 4 nights, and then Monday through Thursdays, their plan is to do 4 nights.
Inside or outside?
Inside, and then in the summer they'll do outdoor.
Okay. And then I had a question, why is it grass and not sand outside?
Grass is, the higher competition is played at more in grass. There's a bunch of people on the west side that play at a park, and that's the kind of the clientele they want is the higher end volleyball, and boat ride up in Wapaka is a big tournament, and so they want to do grass versus sand. So a little more high competition.
And less messy, probably.
Yeah, less messy.
Yeah, so for the outdoor, let me rephrase, for the outdoor, it'll probably be 2 nights a week because of the grass, and you can't play 4 nights on grass or they'll beat it up, so.
And indoor is a sport surface, what do you call it?
Indoors is sport court.
Sport court.
Any other questions then?
I would just say as a the general reception from, hearing from people in the community, just heard rumors about the project. It really meets, I've heard board members say, let's try to get, do our best to acquire destination type businesses. I think this would meet that need. It's a restaurant use that has been something that people clamor about, a bar, and then the recreation use.
Right.
So I think it hits a lot of positives.
Yeah, it does check a lot of boxes.
And what's the dining capacity? Like how many?
I think we're at about 85 for the seating during peak hours.
Inside?
Yeah.
But then you also have the outside?
We have outdoor dining
Probably.
and outdoor eating also.
And then, these were just questions I thought of at ad hoc. Where, is there like a glass window to watch the indoor, or is there like bleachers or?
They do have, they're going to do temporary seating inside, so they'll have bleachers for about 50. And there is a big glass window kind of where the game room area is looking from the bar. Really, if you're sitting at the bar, you can see in. There's a lot of storefront between the volleyball and the bar inside, so yeah, you'll be able to see quite a bit.
Yep.
And there's nice standing room, so if people are at the bar and are curious what's going on, they can go out and stand and kind of watch for a moment. So, yes.
Then, are there gonna be TVs too, in case you wanna watch football
Oh,
or
yeah.
something?
Of course.
There'll be TVs in the bar also.
In case you don't wanna watch volleyball,
Yeah.
you wanna watch football
And
instead.
one
one added feature too is kind of nice, is the indoor volleyball court has garage doors all the way around it, so that we can open it all up, and it'll be like, it'll still be inside, but it'll have the natural, fresh ventilation from the outside.
And mosquitoes.
Oh, we're working on it.
Is that a screen?
We found some mosquito netting that might work.
All right.
Sounds good.
I'll make a motion to approve the request from Oakstone for conditional use permit to operate in outdoor commercial entertainment, outdoor seating, bar and volleyball, accessory land use, and to operate an indoor commercial entertainment, restaurant, bar and volleyball, courts, land use with a liquor license to be located in the northeast corner of Commerce Parkway and Herb Road.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right. All those in
Conditions
favor?
all apply to the site plan.
Yes.
Right.
With conditions. Let's say, well, conditional use permit is already in the wording, right?
Site plan's next.
All right. Again, with that, then, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstained? Motion carries. Item G, then discuss and consider request from Oakstone for approval of site plan for the bar restaurant volleyball facility located in the northeast corner, Commerce Parkway and Road. Again,
I'll make that motion.
okay.
I'll second.
Motion and second.
Is there any conditions with that one?
Yeah, the items in the village action report and then MSA has to approve.
Yeah, okay, with the conditions.
Just natural to say with conditions. Any further discussion? All right, then, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstained? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next summer, we'll be over.
Sounds good. We'll be there. Have a meeting.
All right, item H, discuss and consider request from Jane Garland, Gariki, to rezone approximately 15 acres located at 4901 County Highway N from RH links to P1, PI, planned industrial, or this industrial, parcel 081-332-9782-1 and the other one.
So Jim Greedy is here. He can tell us a little bit more about what he's trying to do. It's probably the first of several times we'll see him. What we're looking at tonight is rezoning his parcels from RH to planned industrial. There's a multi-phase project that Jim can talk about, but this first phase would allow him to use the existing building that's on the site now as the office for his business, which Jim.
Sure. So my wife has a business. She helps seniors downsize, so move from bigger homes into smaller homes, and so we would like to be able to operate that business out of this land. Our long-term plan is to develop the 15 acres into sort of a, I think Aaron called it a small business park with a variety of different types of buildings, not only for our uses, but also for other businesses as well. And as Aaron mentioned, this is sort of the first in a several-step process. So the next step, I believe, is we have a conditional use permit that we'll hopefully have ready to go for next month, as well as a site plan ready to go for next month. So this is to just rezone it to allow us to be able to operate the business.
Yeah, we tackled the conditional use permit at the plan commission. There were a lot of conditions attached, I think because the site plan wasn't fully developed yet. Now with that happening simultaneously, I think that'll take a lot of that confusion and stuff away when we tackle that next. So we recommend approval of the rezone with the conditions that are in this report.
Questions, discussion?
This is consistent with the comprehensive plan, right, Aaron?
To rezone?
This is out in,
Yeah, the way the comp plan is written, it says avoid rezoning to planned industrial when utilities are not in place. Avoid is not never. In this case, this first phase doesn't need the utilities. They're going to be operating out of a building that's already there. The next phase you would be looking at would be storage units would not need the utilities. That's not on the agenda. That will be the conditional use permit site plan next time. So I think it's written that you can make an exception where it makes sense, and I think this is an area where it makes sense because, as we said, the existing building doesn't need municipal sewer and water.
Let's see. Guess I'll make a motion to approve the rezone of approximately 15 acres located at 4901 County Highway N from RH Rural Holding to PI Planned Industrial on those parcel numbers.
I should point out, the current RH zoning would not allow him to use the existing building as an office. So office is not a permitted use in that district, and it wouldn't count as a home occupation because they don't live there.
With the conditions noted.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? I'm just generally concerned about the business that we're going to have when you enter the village that's going to be planned for a bunch of storage buildings. But I think we've already kind of started to talk about how that might look and avoid that look coming into the Cottage
The
Grove.
site plan will also go to the CDA before it comes
Yeah,
back.
that's the other thing I was going to point out. So I'll get a chance to chat with you about that at that point. So that would be my only concern. Any other?
I have the same concern, but if this is just for the use of the building for their business, then.
Yeah, that's.
And the use matches the kind of land use plan and kind of the discussions that the CDA has had.
For that district, yeah.
So.
Kind of in the transition zone between office and industrial, which when this is completely built out, we'll have the office for moving forward, and we'll have
Some industrial.
leasable space that's office / warehouse, and the storage and distribution.
Okay.
We certainly want to ensure that the business can keep going in the meantime.
Yeah.
From that perspective. Any further discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Reports from village officers. Troy?
No report.
Jim?
No report.
Jeff?
No report.
Melissa?
No report.
Everybody's worn down.
Reluctant, yeah.
John?
I have two quick ones. So the fire station parking lot update, everyone obviously saw it. They're coming back tomorrow to paint, do some painting outside the front door. However, in their estimate that they provided to the fire commission, which got brought back to the town and the village, there's a miscalculation for material resulting in $16,990.35.
In overhead? Right.
No.
Yeah. We're getting a rebate, we're having a party.
So, talked to Chris Hampton, they talked about it last night at the town board meeting. And, you know,
One thing I noticed when I came in today, there seems to be a low spot over here in the corner,
Chris
the
is gonna
water
address that,
standing.
there's water.
Yeah.
So they're gonna have to come back out. So the $16,990, I'm just conveying from Wolf Paving, is material costs only, no profit. However, so it's some piece of equipment, and I'm certainly not a paver, but they miscalculated the square footage over on the north side of the building, from what I understood, speaking with the representative this morning.
How does that match up with the bid?
Well, because these tablets actually drop emails and documents after a month, I tried to go back for, you know, what was in second place. I think second place still would have been over by $2,000. However, you know, we did save $10,000 by removing the old asphalt ourselves. So it, you know, it's 25% over the actual bid.
So are they asking for more money? Is that what
They're asking, well, their hope is for, you know, the $17,000. And I know you're in business where you provide plenty of quotes.
That would be on me. I would have to deal with it.
They have some sort of insurance for that. And right now, it's just a discussion item under my reports. I'm just making everyone aware of that.
Yeah, I talked to Chris Hampton about that also. and, He said there was one bid that was above Wolf Paving, but wasn't that much more than what theirs
Bartlett.
was either. You know, again, in the situation, what did the village and town do wrong?
No, exactly. Yep. So it'll be a future agenda item. Just wanted to make, this came about, I think Chris called me Thursday or Friday. By the time I got a hold of the Wolf point of contact today, I got the details, and that's where we're at.
The other thing too is that if they would have given a proper quote,
Yeah, I
then
understand
we
that.
might have gone with
I
the other.
first
That's what we're
dispute
saying.
those things.
Yep.
And if they would have came under, would they have given us the money back?
Let's ask them that, yeah.
It's called
Yeah, no, I'll speak with Chris in the morning and then give the point of contact a call back. And probably what I would suggest is we have as a future agenda item, where if he so chooses so, we can work with the town, but because we meet on the same night, address the village, address the town, and
Might this be something we could even discuss at the meeting on the 27th a little
I
bit?
was just thinking the same thing. This might be a good agenda item.
You certainly can, yeah. I'm not going to be there, but I would add that. That's a good point, Troy.
Yeah.
Yep.
These are short discussions.
And then my second item under report is future meeting dates of village board meetings and joint meetings with the town. Now, this meeting's off cycle to accommodate our financial planning manager group who we pay. Throws a wrench in the plans, and I know I voted for it. However, I'm missing a swim meet, so I would ask that, if they can't accommodate when the village board meets, maybe they hire another staff or send another person. Meeting with the town, I already brought that up. We kind of had a date on the calendar for the better part of 4 or 5 months, and we find out 2 weeks before that that it's been changed, and now I can't make it, and I'm a little disappointed because that's one of my top priorities is better communication with them. I know the school has reached out to Jack, and the school superintendent, business service director met with the town last night because they got him on the agenda. They hadn't heard back as of 3:30 this afternoon. So the superintendent did say he can't make the October 1st meeting because they're meeting with the Monona Council, but he can meet the October 15th meeting, so I don't know if I need a second person to get that on the agenda for October 15th, but with the referendum coming up, we obviously.
I'll second that for you.
Yeah.
So, so for the October 1st meeting, future agenda items, we'll bring that up again. And what I've noticed at the Plan Commission meeting last week, when we had that Cornelia for fireworks, when the public comes to speak, we have something on our agenda that says, public's opportunity to speak about any subject and not a specific agenda item. However, when people come to speak about an agenda item and they don't know that they need to fill out the slip of paper and turn it in before the meeting, I've seen 2 instances now where they got turned down. So I would hope that maybe, we appreciate the public's input. And whether it's me coming early and sitting by the desk saying, hey, are you here to talk about a topic? Please fill out a piece of paper or some sort of policy, because a lot of these people, let's just face it, they either come if something's in their backyard or some piques their interest, and it might be their first or second meeting, so they don't know. So I'd really like, to take a proactive approach to allowing them to be able to
John, do you
speak.
remember, I don't remember that happening.
Who got turned down?
The guy right behind me said, well, I don't know, I needed to fill out a piece of paper, so I guess I'm too late. So it wasn't, him raising his hand.
Okay. I think we just, in those instances, if board members are aware of someone that might be there to speak, or if we, certainly just kind of speak up. It's also kind of, otherwise it's kind of up to whoever's running the meeting. I would think if someone's there to speak, you just let them speak.
That's what I thought too, but when the
Very
gentleman
much,
came to sell fireworks,
totally,
and Chief
right.
Labor already briefed us on state law, and we wanted to adhere to that. I knew which way I was gonna vote, but the guy was here to speak, and let's just let him hear about
And then
this.
on the Ellers thing and rescheduling the meeting, they provided us, just so you guys know, a bunch of dates, and they either conflicted with other village meetings, or tomorrow night was another option, but then the Lions Club meeting conflicted with that, so it wasn't that, this was just it's hard to reschedule.
And that's why I'm suggesting that if they're under contract with us to provide services, that they maybe stick to our schedule versus us.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, are they our customer or are we their customer? I'm in sales, I don't take care of my customers, they go someplace else.
I'm missing a swim meet with my daughter, I'm missing a Legion meeting, which I probably would have missed if off-cycle meeting. I mean, I do have things scheduled in the evening, beyond just village board meetings. And then the last item I'm hoping for is if letters go to neighbors for future businesses or developments, within the 200 or 400 feet radius, whatever the rule is, if maybe the trustees can get a copy of that letter, so we're aware and we can make sure that the neighbors their concerns are addressed as appropriate.
Or just email it to us. Yeah.
Yep. You don't need to mail it.
In regard to, we've provided a variety of scripts, and we'll do that again to just maybe read at the beginning of the meeting. Just say, if you're here and you want to speak, fill out a form and let us know, because people aren't used to the procedure. So I think that's a good, that's just something we can do.
I appreciate it. Thanks. And that's all I had. Thanks for the time. And thanks to Andy. I don't know if Andrew's still here or not, but for all his years of service on AV, and I like the partnership with the MGAV. So,
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's nice to see you. High school students.
We offered to introduce him tonight, but he's just too modest.
He is gonna remain a consultant on an as-needed basis. As long as he's in the area, we can call him and we can keep him on payroll for an hour or two here and there if needed, so.
Cool.
Should work out well.
Sounds good.
All right, I'm up next. I don't have any items to cover. Jack is absent excused. Attorney Lee Shea.
Nothing further?
Okay. Matt.
Big thank you to Chief Wolf for, he talked with John or vice versa on getting, this set up, and that really helped because otherwise we really would have been crammed in the municipal services building. We would have worked through it, but this is much better, so.
Yeah, they bring people in and
Sean,
show.
the closeness in a public.
Smell the breath.
That's
Smell
all
the
I have.
Get to know
public's
your
breath. Yeah.
fellow.
All right, Aaron, anything else?
Villagers.
Nothing else?
Okay. Chief?
Nothing.
I like when you have nothing to say.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. All right, item 10, communication miscellaneous business. Consider approval of vouchers. Any questions on the vouchers this time through? From anyone?
I'll make a motion to approve. Well, I guess we don't need to. It just says consider.
It should say.
Consider approval of.
Consider approval of.
Well, I make the motion to approve them.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Correspondence? I don't have any. Lisa?
No.
No correspondence. Moving on to MC, upcoming community events.
On September 28th, there's the Triad State Conference at American Family from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. All sorts of information for seniors.
Is that the
Or
20th? You remember?
just interested individuals that want to learn more
Yeah.
Okay.
about scams and fraud and all that good stuff.
What was the time, Melissa?
8 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Thank you.
And
It
thank-
includes lunch.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for Lisa for forwarding out that community rugby day for the September 29th. The community is invited to learn more about rugby and their club.
All right, anything from anyone else?
Thanks.
All right. Future agenda items, I think we covered several with John.
Yeah, I also wanted to try to get Jeremy Holiday in for October 15th for rugby. Yeah, Wisconsin Rugby Club.
I will, last week at the Plan Commission, I passed out a copy of the agreement and the amendment. I will make available to you those items, but also the exhibits that go along with it so that you have an idea of what we're talking about.
Okay, sounds good. Starting point. So if I can...
In the item that John and I discussed.
Superintendent of the school, Monona Grove School District, plans to address us October 15th regarding upcoming referendum. I don't know if we label that public hearing, because it's not a discuss and consider, but I know they had a number of town residents that stuck around last evening and town board. Wait, where is it?
We can put it on as a presentation.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's reasonable. With Q&A.
Yeah.
That'll give us a chance to use the new thing that we read to say, if you want to talk, write it down.
Is there any other items you had?
No, I was just kind of trying to make a point that,
Yeah.
meetings we should probably try to stick to or plan far enough out.
Oh, the fire station parking lot, but that'll be on.
That'll be on the joint.
Joint, yes, right. All right, anything else? Otherwise, we have one item left. Oh, no, we have.
Closed session.
Okay.
That's what they're in the back for.